Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Downtown Madison Inc. Advocacy Update for June of 2025. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're also enjoying downtown this summer as much as you can. The Advocacy Update is a series where we bring important leaders to talk about big community issues important to downtown and our community in general. And today we have Chris Ott, the Deputy Director for the High Speed Rail Alliance. He's going to join us to talk about all things rail in and out of Madison. A very important conversation. I'm super excited. Most importantly, because my parents are taking the rail in just a couple days here. So I'm excited to hear everything that's happening. The Advocacy Update series is generously sponsored by our friends at Sinair, our major series sponsors. Also, Hush Blackwell and the Fiore Company. So a huge thanks again to Hush Blackwell, Fiore Companies, and to Sinair. And we have Senior Vice President of Business Development, Chris Gillings, again with us today. Chris, how are you, my friend?
Morning, Jason. I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing great. How's your summer going so far?
It is the typical summer for me, which means that I am spending all of my weekends probably busier than my weeks roaming baseball fields, as you well know.
Are you just the mayor right now of the West Madison Little League field area? Do you do there so much?
No, the official mayoral title actually belongs to my youngest son, who's there right now for a baseball camp. So he is
He's
far
there
more
more than you are.
notorious than I am. Yes.
And how is everything in Sinair?
It's good, Jason. We were fortunate back at the end of May to close the largest fund for affordable housing in our firm's history. And as goes with any time you have that kind of accomplishment or achievement, you celebrate for about 30 minutes and then you're right back to work on the next thing. So lots of good things. WIDA just announced all of its tax credit awards for 2025. So looking forward to finding ways to continue to plug into housing around the state of Wisconsin.
Well, and you all know the flip side of the coin of housing, affordable housing, is transportation. So I know you guys are so supportive of a strong transportation infrastructure, including intracity, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like that, at the end of the day, affordable housing is about. We talk a lot about it, and why we love this series is being able to talk about healthy communities, and that means affordable, ecologically well-adjusted manners of getting people around a city efficiently. Sometimes a car is an impediment. I was just out in Washington, D.C., doing some lobbying a couple of weeks ago up on Capitol Hill. And it's the metro that makes getting around that city and moving around it easy. So I'm excited to hear what Chris has to say. I know that the state has had some opportunities to capitalize on rail, and I know that you and the rest of the DMI team are working feverishly on making sure that good access to rail service is an efficient way of getting around not only our city but our state and our country. Continues to be a priority as we continue to see Madison grow.
Here, here. Thank you, Chris, and the team at Sinair for all of your leadership and your continued sponsorship of the Advocacy Update. Hope you have a great day, Chris.
Hey, you too, Jason. Thanks.
Absolutely. Well, that starts us off with our advocacy update, and let's just start with trains. We're supportive of trains. We have been supportive of trains forever. We really want to see connections between other big Midwestern cities like Milwaukee, like Minneapolis, like Chicago, and Chris is going to talk more about that in just a few minutes. But this is hugely important work for us, and we've zealously advocated for passenger rail for years. Most recently, for citing the station, potential station for the extension of the Hiawatha line right here in downtown next to Monona Terrace. We think it's the best site, and our organization has gone on record as such. But this update about what's happening in the DMI advocacy world is all about the Greater Downtown Economic Investment Strategy, which we launched this week. It is a first of its kind initiative with our friends in the city of Madison. It offers an opportunity to create a long-term investment strategy for downtown, one that ensures growth is viable, sustainable, and inclusive. This partnership will leverage the public and private sectors and the strengths of each to benefit both of our communities. Now, through our coordination and planning, our aligned investment, and our extensive stakeholder engagement, we will guide Madison's downtown to benefit all the residents, visitors, and workers here in the downtown. We'll help in coordination with our friends at the City of Madison on their land use plan as well. We are so excited to bring in our friends from MIG, Equity by Design, Vanderwall, and Neo as our partners. These are fantastic nationwide firms that are going to help us with this work over the next year or so. This is a big initiative for downtown Madison Inc. and a big initiative for downtown. And we're so thankful for all of our partners for their work. Hope you all want to get involved. If you want to get involved, just send us a note. We make sure to get you involved in this process about how we can plan downtown for the next 10 to 15 years, both publicly and privately. So thank you again to all of our partners, the City of Madison, MIG, Neo, Vanderwall Associates, and Equity by Design. And of course, our good friend Emily DeVore, Director of Placemaking and Economic Development, who is helping lead this effort for our organization. We are on to our main show. We've got Chris Ott, Deputy Director of the High Speed Rail Alliance, with us. Even though he's Deputy Director of a national organization, he's based right here in Madison. So we're always so thankful for all of his work. He's a strong member of our DMI Transportation Committee and has given us updates. And we thought our general membership would love to hear an update about all things rail. Honestly, it's a question that I get all the time. What is the future of rail in Madison? Chris, how are you doing today?
Pretty well, thank you. I really
Let's
appreciate the chance to be here.
I love it. And I gotta say, I always love your background. It is so train focused. I always love a good background. I got Madison here. You've got the map of the Amtrak network, all the different trains here. It's fantastic. You really do have a cool job, don't you?
Oh yeah, it's great. It is kind of a dream job in a lot of ways. And I was a member of our organization for about 6 or 7 years before I actually came to work here. So I'm a true believer.
Yes, and you said you're literally getting on a train in a couple of days here. I mentioned my parents are. We're trying to walk the walk here. We've got great service. Yes, it's in Columbus or in Portage, whichever part of the city you're closer to. But we do have great service. Begs the first question. I know you've got some slides sort of going over what is the status of passenger rail right now in the state of Wisconsin? What does the future look like?
Yeah, happy to talk about that. So there are good things going on with trains in Wisconsin. Unfortunately, those of us who live in the Madison area are a little bit far away from it. But let me, just sort of cover some basics for people who might not be familiar. Wisconsin shares a few trains or a few passenger train lines rather, with other states. There's one called the Hiawatha, which runs between Chicago and Milwaukee about 6 times a day or 6 times a day. There's a long distance train that called the Empire Builder, which runs all the way from Chicago to the Pacific Northwest and back once a day in each direction. And then on that same line between Chicago and the Twin Cities is a new train. It started up just last May called the Borealis. And the two shorter trains, the Hiawatha between Chicago and Milwaukee, and the new Borealis between Chicago and the Twin Cities, of course, serve Wisconsin, and those trains in particular are doing just great. They last year, Amtrak carried these three trains carried more than 1 million people to 8 different stations in Wisconsin. So sometimes people who aren't familiar with this or the detractors think that this is some kind of a niche thing, but 1 million passengers, that's a lot of people using these trains already, even though they're kind of limited. The Hiawatha is one of the most popular trains in the country. That's partly because it's got a pretty dependable schedule. It goes 6 times a day, so you can kind of choose whichever train suits your schedule the best. And the Borealis, though it's just a little over a year old, has been knocking it out of the park. It was initially projected to have ridership of about 150,000 passengers per year. In its first year, it had more than 200,000. So, that's like 30% over the projection. So these trains are really popular, even though, they're not especially fast. They max out at about 79 miles an hour. Some of them, like the Borealis, only goes once a day in each direction. So very limited scheduling, and yet still people are really riding these trains. If you take them, if you have taken them, or if you take them in the future, you find that on some days, especially on weekends, they can be sold out or at least very full. And so one of the main problems that we have, in addition to the limited schedules, is that Most people in Wisconsin live 30 miles or more from one of the stations. And I'll bring up a first slide here quickly. Um, So this map shows all those 8 stations that are in Wisconsin, and as you can tell, I mean it's all essentially on just one line. Even the trains between Milwaukee and Chicago use this same line that then heads west from there. But it leaves so much of the state out. It leaves out Green Bay and the Fox Cities. Of course, it leaves out Madison. It leaves out Eau Claire. And so it's great that these trains are so popular, doing so well, even though they serve a relatively limited area. Uh, and you can in as Jason, as you mentioned, if you live in the Madison area, if you can get yourself to Portage or Columbus or Milwaukee, you can use these trains. But clearly, they should directly serve Madison, where the capital of the state, we're a big important city, and there are other states or other cities rather in Wisconsin that deserve good train service. So if you want, we can talk more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we love to talk about the future as well. I mean, you talk about how we had, million, folks riding, over 200,000 on the Borealis. It seems like there's an appetite for more trains in Wisconsin. Obviously, looking at the map right now, doesn't go to Madison, right? Columbus is a far reach, let's call it a far suburb of Madison, but certainly is within connection. So what does the future look like for passenger rail in Wisconsin, but particularly for Madison? And then because we're homers and we're DMI, what could it look like for downtown?
Sure. Well, there's nothing definite. There's nothing to take for granted. So, we've got to work for this. But let's talk about some vision for the future. An exciting, appealing vision for being able to travel more conveniently than we can today. The Amtrak network, the nationwide network, is sometimes described as skeletal. There just aren't that many trains. And here in Wisconsin, looking at this map, we don't even really have a skeleton. We've just kind of got a leg. Um, but there's been some serious work done looking at a more ambitious future, and that's so let's take a look at this slide, which I know there's a lot here, so let me try to explain. The Federal Railroad Administration, which has in its jurisdiction both freight rail and passenger rail, over a period of years, I think it was between 2017 and 2021, they did a study called the Midwest Regional Rail Plan. And they looked at a 12-state region and sort of looked at toward the middle of the century to answer the question of what should a passenger train network meeting the needs of this big region of the country look like. And they came up with this map or diagram. It looks kind of like a molecule or modern art or something like that. But what we're essentially looking at are what the FRA calls the pillar corridors that the Midwest ought to have. That's what each of the colored lines in particular show. And the purple line that Madison is on, and they have Madison in their map, they identified that as the most important line in the whole Midwest network as having the greatest potential ridership. And they said that that line in particular should have probably hourly service. And of course, if you're going to have trains running every hour, they've got to be going quickly. And the other thing that this diagram shows are estimated travel times. So from Chicago to Milwaukee, about an hour, and then all the way between Chicago and the Twin Cities via Madison, a total trip time of about 3 hours. And then connected to this dynamic network that could get you from Chicago to Detroit in 2 hours, Chicago to St. Louis in 2 hours, and so forth. So that's one vision for the future. Let's take our organization, the High Speed Rail Alliance, has this map which shows a vision in more detail for Wisconsin too. Yes, we should have a high speed, high frequency line with hourly service, as the FRA says, going through Wisconsin somehow, serving Madison. But we need other trains as well. The whole network is really important. Trains traveling at conventional speeds and even bus service is really important to make it possible for people to get to and from cities that probably won't have a train, but we still want to make it useful to as many people as possible. So to quickly explain this diagram, the black lines, that line that we saw on the other map, that's this one, that's the existing one, and then the thicker colored lines are the are lines that WisDOT right now is studying. They're studying the possibility of service to between Milwaukee and Green Bay, Milwaukee and Madison, Madison on to Eau Claire and the Twin Cities, and then with some more frequency on some of these lines as well. And then our organization has, put in dashed lines for some others for the future. But let's keep it relatively simple for now. This map shows just the lines that WisDOT is studying right now.
So there is optimism, and there really is optimism and some planning that's happening. But big changes, obviously, in the federal government can change things. So, what are the reasons for optimism now that we're going to start to see some of this work?
There are a number of reasons for optimism, and I'll get to those. I do want to, sort of keep it real, and share, that we are in kind of a tough spot right now, both with, as I'm sure everyone is aware, things have been pretty volatile in Washington over the last few months. So federal funding for infrastructure work, like rail projects, has been held up. We are cautiously optimistic that that will continue moving forward in some way. I'll say a little bit more about that in a minute or so. The state budget is also in a work in progress right now as well. There's a June 30th deadline, but my understanding is that negotiations haven't been going especially well. So what we may end up in a scenario in which Wisconsin continues to use the budget, the current budget for the 2-year period that is ending for a while longer until a new budget can be worked out. The one of the things that's currently out of the budget is the governor proposed putting in some more money for passenger rail. That's been taken out, but hopefully will get put back in. So that is, those are some of the things that need to be worked out to keep us moving forward. There have also been some staff cuts, serious staff cuts at the federal level in the Federal Railroad Administration and at Amtrak, which that's another thing that has been a factor in the plans. But I promised reasons for optimism, and here they come. Even though there have been these layoffs at the FRA and Amtrak, the White House for the next federal budget has actually proposed a slight increase for the Amtrak National Network. For people, or whether you've been following this through the years or not, this is really different. I mean, fairly often, uh, depending on who is in the White House, there are proposals to essentially eliminate Amtrak. And so the fact that this new administration has proposed an increase for the national network is an interesting and encouraging sign. So that's one. For us here in Wisconsin, there's just support from all over the state for new and improved train service. We've seen that over the last couple of years as this discussion has kind of accelerated from mayors of cities all over Wisconsin have said that they're interested in having train service for their communities. Chambers and organizations like DMI have been really, really supportive of getting more train service in Wisconsin. There is a Wisconsin Business Coalition for Passenger Rail that has, dozens of name recognition companies in Wisconsin have gone on record saying that they support increased passenger rail, and just people all over the state are saying pretty loud and clear that they would like this, really appealing travel option. Jason, you said that you hear it all the time. I hear it all the time too. So the demand is out there. And there's also there's growing support, bipartisan support in the state legislature. It's still, it's a fractious and contentious time, so people are not necessarily really vocal about their support for passenger rail, but it's there. We find that when we occasionally give briefings at the state capitol, our members are in touch with lawmakers from different parts of the state, and they're making their views known, and they are sometimes hearing that yes, state lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are interested in this. So that's another reason for optimism. Yet another is that we're talking about, at this stage, we're talking about relatively little money. In the current state budget, Wisconsin puts in just shy of $15 million a year to support the trains that we have now, and well, that's mainly what that money does. The governor proposed almost doubling that to $29.8 million over a 2-year period to continue supporting the existing trains, but also to do the engineering work or to really start doing the engineering work for these new lines that are shown on the map here. So that's very important to make sure that that money is in there and can unlock federal support. The As Wisconsin moves through the process that we're in right now to build these new lines or to get these new lines running, the federal government can put in 90% of the up to 90% of the money. So if Wisconsin puts in its 10, we unlock a lot of support from the federal government. And though, so that's a proposed total for the next 2 years of 30 million, which is real money. But compared to what we spend on highways, which over the same period is about $4 billion, that's really a pretty modest amount of money for something that really provides a lot of benefits, provides a useful and popular alternative for people, for travelers. And one last reason for optimism, there's really strong interest in connecting better passenger rail connections to Wisconsin from Illinois. And in fact, though it didn't pass, there was actually legislation introduced in Springfield to direct IDOT, the State Department of Transportation there, to begin looking at the possibility of direct service train service between Madison and Chicago. So, it's grayed out on the map that we're looking at right now, but sort of heading out of Chicago to the northwest, going through Janesville and getting to Madison that way. So there's, interest in Illinois is that strong that there's even been a bill introduced to try to make that happen.
I mean, I'd count that as a lot of reasons for optimism.
Right.
And what this optimism is important because what does expanded passenger rail service do for the state, for the city, and for downtown?
Well, it does a lot of things, and one of the most important is that it could bring a lot of people here to Madison and to to other cities and communities around the state that it would serve. But to put some numbers on it from the trains that we have going right now, in the first quarter of this year, in other words, the winter, when probably fewer people are traveling. Milwaukee had just shy of 70,000 people get off the train in that 3-month period. Now, of course, some of those people were people who live in Milwaukee who were coming back from other trips, but that's still a lot of people. And there are professionals who estimate ridership, and I'm not gonna, all I can do is kind of, do back of the envelope stuff, but or encourage people to think about what this could look like for Madison. But though Madison is a smaller city than Milwaukee in terms of population, we have a lot of things that a city like Milwaukee, important and great as it is, it doesn't have. We have the University of Wisconsin Madison flagship campus. We have Badger Games. We have Monona Terrace. We have, the wonderful downtown and State Street with all the attractions there, the farmers market, so many restaurants and shops and events, happening downtown. Those could draw a lot of people to Madison who would arrive, get off the train, and want a sandwich or, want a hotel room for the night or, whatever it might be. Big potential economic benefits. Trains also provide, a really great alternative to driving rather, and to flying. Trains can be easier and cheaper. They're potentially faster, even at relatively modest speeds. When you factor in the time it takes to get to airports, to and from airports, and go through security, the train ride can be faster than that whole process. So, there are some real advantages there. Can I say something nice about Illinois? and what they've done.
Yeah, of course. Yes,
All
of
right.
course.
All right. So the state of Illinois, and this is something that our organization advocated for years ago, but the state of Illinois, over a period of years, worked really closely with the Union Pacific Railroad, which owns track between Chicago and Springfield. And they worked to, the tracks were in poor condition, hadn't really been invested in for a long time. So the state and the railroad worked together to upgrade the tracks. They just got them physically in better condition. They put in better and more signaling to make things safer. And the results are wonderful. They now have service between Chicago and Springfield that can go up to 110 miles an hour. And the maybe you or some of your members in the audience for this recording have had a chance to take this train. If you haven't, I encourage you, if you ever have a reason to make that trip, because it's fantastic. I just did it. I had just had a chance to do it myself about 2 months ago, and you're on this modern train going through Illinois countryside most of the way. Part of the line runs right parallel to I-55, and you're just sort of obviously passing by the cars and trucks on the interstate, and you know that they're going probably at least 85, or a lot of them are going 85, maybe even faster than that. So it's just, it kind of sells itself, and it's just a great experience that we should have here. Um, and then one more benefit besides these others are there are some amazing safety benefits with trains. And one of the most remarkable examples comes from Japan, where, it was actually just last fall, they had the 60th anniversary of the first bullet trains that they put in service in Japan. And, since that time, they've really expanded their network. And basically, for 60 years now, they have had trains running all over Japan at, around 200 miles an hour. They've carried, I think, something like 5 billion passengers in that time. And there has been an astounding number of passenger fatalities. That number is zero. I mean, think about,
What?
fortunately, yes, zero. Um,
Wow.
it's incredible. And think about the number of plane crashes there have been in the last 60 years. I mean, fortunately, they are relatively rare, but they happen. And every year in the United States, something like 40,000 people lose their lives on our roads, and that that doesn't even count the injury. So we're paying just a really high price in the United States for over-reliance on air travel, and especially on highway travel. And trains just provide this incredibly safe and convenient, attractive alternative.
Well, I think you already had me before, but I mean, there is a lot of positive about train. Play a timeline though for me. Best case scenario, everything works out, state budget works out, federal government, sort of does figure out the funding model. When potentially could we, best case scenario again, see train service? And what train service could we see in Madison? What does that look like?
Um, the a best case scenario, and going by what WisDOT and the city have shared along the way over the last couple of years, I mean, we're probably, this does take time. The studies that, we talked about the need for funding to keep those studies moving forward. Uh, we're probably looking at maybe service being able to start in 2031, I think is a number that has been put out there. So, too far away, but still, not far off in the future. We could make this happen. And we do this all the time in other ways. We've built interstate highways all over the country, serving just about every city in the whole country. We could do this for trains too. Um, it's a matter of political will, and I think that political will is growing, and there's just more and more awareness of what other countries already have, the benefits that they enjoy, and people, more and more people seem to want that here. One other thing, alongside that, that I wanted to mention is that we have these lines, the colored thicker lines on this map showing what WisDOT is studying right now. We absolutely need those trains. We should get those running as soon as possible. But there are these other possibilities. And the one, we've already touched on this, but an exciting one for those of us in the Madison area is the possibility of, in addition to a connection between Milwaukee and Madison, there could and very arguably should be a direct train running between Madison and Chicago. That would and the line that's there is not really heavily used, so it's actually a good candidate for a kind of quick project to, kind of do what was done with that Chicago to Springfield line, get the line in better shape. It could be electrified, and we could have trains running between Madison and Chicago, stopping at O'Hare, uh, making that trip in 2 hours or less. And let's aim high for all of this. That's another thing that I wanted to say. I mean, let's aim high. We should be looking at service at least every 2 hours, and for a heavily traveled line like between Madison and Chicago, you can easily make the case for trains that go every hour.
And this is very important stuff. I mean, for our organization, we need to make those connections between these major cities in the Midwest. We are so lucky to sit in that arc, right? Between some of the biggest and most important economic cities in the country, let alone the world, right? Minneapolis, St. Paul, the Twin Cities, Milwaukee, and Chicago. And to be sitting right at the center with a large research institution, with reciprocity with Minnesota, with their students, there's so many reasons to make this happen. And it would just be an absolute boon for downtown as well. Provide significant economic strength, vibrancy, just bring people right into the heart of the city. Chris Ott, we want to say a huge thank you for all you do for the rail network here. It's just so great to have a nationwide advocate based here right on the east side of Madison. So, Chris, thank you for your support and all you do at the High Speed Rail Alliance.
Yeah, well, thank you. I, really appreciate your support and DMI's support, and let's make this happen.
Absolutely. Let's dream big. Let's dream big. Thank you as well to our friends at Sinair, Hush Blackwell, and the Fury Companies for your support of the Advocacy Update series. Hopefully, we'll see you downtown soon. Have a great day, and thank you very much.